Hello world, welcome to Inflicting Opinions, where we look at video game-y things and I share my dumb rambling thoughts. Today it's just going to be all about Google Stadia, everyone's current favorite punching bag. The first thing that everyone was obsessing over, making these ridiculous articles over and 20-minute videos, is the question, what if Stadia is discontinued? First of all, if Google had actually answered this, everyone would be crapping on them for planning to fail. It's like, oh look, Google already plans for Stadia to fail, so obviously they weren't going to give a straight answer to this question. Duh. There's two possible outcomes I can see just to answer it for Google. One, if Stadia goes under, you could lose all your shit. That's kind of, the most cynical version. The other option is that you keep access to all of the things you bought. You just can't buy anything new. They might dump the 4K streaming and just keep it with the 720 and 1080 streaming, and that would be fine. It would actually go along the lines of what Google has done with their fiber program. They obviously haven't done anything with it for years, really, but it's not going anywhere. It still exists. The next thing from the AMA is that Stadia is not Netflix for games, which I kind of figured that out with the fact that there's only, one whole free game with the subscription at launch. So, yeah, I don't know if anyone really can do a Netflix for games at this point in time anyway, at least not in places like the United States, because our internet infrastructure is quite shit. I do expect it to change in the next 3 to 5 years, but that's not the reality right now. Apparently, Stadia is going to be like the Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus. I don't own any of those because I don't have a console, and I'm not going to own a console, and I don't care enough about how they work. Who is this for? It's kind of a weird question because Stadia is new technology, and usually new technology, when it launches, is for early adopters. The same people that are always on the ground floor with new technology, the people that want to be first, the people that like an extra money to burn, and then eventually the tech evolves and becomes, maybe cheaper or with better features, and maybe a year or two later, it's for a much wider audience. I mean, Google Stadia, what they're offering and what is most likely going to evolve into has appeal to almost anybody. I can't really imagine very many people other than anyone who doesn't like to game at all, anyone who doesn't want to buy a console, anyone who doesn't really have a powerful desktop or doesn't want to buy one, anyone who has like horrific exchange rates. I mean, sure, you'd have to pay full price for the games, unless of course they're on sale, but you don't have to buy all this extra hardware just to play a video game. Not needing to worry about what device you want to play on. You could just buy it and then play it on whatever. If you have a phone or a tablet, janky laptop, and you could play games on any of those devices through Stadia. I know there's people saying that, hardcore gamers aren't going to be interested in this at all. That's not necessarily true. Especially if we're talking about streamers and uploaders. I'm not entirely sure what kind of features are going to be included with integration with YouTube, but that's going to be a thing. I mean, it's kind of a no-duh. Google is going to leverage that platform and take advantage of that. So yeah, a hardcore gamer, someone that streams and uploads, Stadia could have great features for those people too. And just because someone's a hardcore gamer doesn't mean they don't own multiple devices that they want to game on. You buy it once, you play it on multiple devices. So that's really appeal for basically anyone. Something I think is weird is the price for games on Stadia isn't going to be cheaper. And then people complain about this. I'm not sure why. When you buy a digital game, isn't it the same price as a physical game? I mean, even the games on the Epic Store, I don't think they're any cheaper despite the lower platform holder cut. So I don't know where this expectation that games would be cheaper on Stadia just because you're streaming. Cloud gaming has different pros and cons to, say, buying digitally or buying a physical copy, but it doesn't mean it's like a lesser or service or anything. I don't know. It just seems like, why would it be any different in price when nothing else is cheaper on different platforms? I don't know where this expectation comes from, because I would expect the opposite, that it would be the same price as anywhere else, because that's just kind of how that goes. Something else that I liked from the AMA is that mod support is in the works. It's not going to be at launch, which, sure, But Google is working with developers trying to figure out the best way to implement mod support. And I know this is coming up in other ways, especially when you're talking about, Bethesda games, but to me that's not really an issue. I personally use Mod Organizer to launch Bethesda games through Steam. It's just kind of like a front end for launching through Steam. So I don't see why it would be any different to have something like Mod Organizer and then launch the games through Stadia instead of Steam. Because for me, it would be the same thing. Sure, there'd be, some programming to go through, but I don't think Google is going to completely ignore sites like Nexus, and I fully expect them to develop some kind of API so that Mod Organizer, Nexus Mod Manager, and Vortex can all have mods and then launch through the Stadia service. I also see people criticizing Stadia for not having a beta. I thought there was a beta. It was just called Project Stream, and it happened in November and December. Sure, it wasn't a huge open, well, I guess it was a semi-closed beta, semi-open beta. You had to sign up for it, but I'm pretty sure they accepted a whole bunch of people as long as they met the minimum requirements for the testing. And I do expect that Google has proper QA testers. This is a massive, massive company. I'm sure they have all kinds of people in some sort of closed beta capacity. The thing that people crap on Stadia the most for doesn't actually have anything to do with Stadia, but the internet infrastructure as it is today, in places like the United States, I can't say for the rest of the world, but in the United States, the internet infrastructure is quite terrible. And of course, the question of data caps that have been enforced recently, pretty much since net neutrality went down the toilet, mostly. I love how there's this article that everyone is talking about where Google was interviewed and they said that they expected ISPs to adapt as they have in the past. And then everyone immediately makes fun of Google for believing ISPs care about customers, which is stupid and completely the wrong way to even look at this. Let's just put this into another context. Google, big-ass, powerful company, they want to do cloud-based gaming. Ubisoft, nowhere near as big, but still big-ass company, they want to partner with Google for the cloud-based gaming. Microsoft and Sony are teaming up. Two massive companies that have already announced they also want to get in on cloud-based gaming. Microsoft has been dumping a ton of money into Azure, which is their cloud platform. So yeah, they absolutely want to have all the cloud-based everything, not just gaming. Amazon has announced they too want to have cloud-based gaming. These are all companies that have the resources and the money and the power to actually have this happen. Do you really think that they're going to let some stupid ISPs get in the way of their billions of dollars from this new technology? No way. Not even going to happen. It has nothing to do with pleasing customers and everything to do with pressure from massive companies. And that's not even everything. Incidentally, in the same article where people are making fun of Google for believing in ISPs getting their shit together, the entire comment about 5G was completely glossed over and ignored. Except that 5G is actually significant and important. 5G's theoretical maximum speeds are 10 gigabits per second download. 10. That's really way more than what you would need for something like Stadia. And it's also competitive with existing ISPs. It's probably going to blow away existing ISPs. My internet service provider in the past year has just announced the plan. Well, they have a plan for 1 gigabit per second download. One, a lot less. So 5G, sure, it's taken forever to roll out, at least here in the United States, painfully slow. However, if you have a cell phone, and you have 5G, why the hell would you want a traditional ISP as well? And don't say so you can have Netflix for your TV. There's already a way for you to hook up your cell phone to your laptop and get internet that way. There's going to be hardware, if it doesn't already exist, that lets you hook up your 5G from your cell plan so you could stream shit to your TV, so you can have your Netflix and your Hulu and your Amazon Prime and whatever else you want streaming to your TV. No question about it. This isn't some crazy shit that can't possibly happen. It's technology that absolutely will happen. So there is now suddenly no reason to have internet for your house if you could just use this 5G plan that you already have anyway because you have a cell phone? And it's not just that. You also have the low Earth orbit broadband. And this is significant because the biggest barrier for ever using satellite-based internet before was the horrific latency. I mean, we're talking about like hundreds, if not thousands of milliseconds of latency, but that problem has been solved. As I mentioned before, OneWeb's test, they have 32 milliseconds of latency in their low Earth orbit broadband test. But that's the latency I get connecting to servers that are a lot closer to me than a low Earth orbit satellite would be. So that's incredible. And this is new technology that I would expect to become better and evolve over time. And of course, OneWeb isn't the only one doing it. Amazon, big ass company, and of course, SpaceX. So you kind of have existing ISPs getting hammered from multiple sides, from competitors and from other humongous companies that want to have their way. So ISPs are going to get their shit together, not because they want to please their customers, but because they want to keep their customers, and because these other big-ass businesses are putting a lot of pressure on them. Or maybe they're just making backroom deals. Who knows? Or, they could be stabbing each other in the back, which to me, I think is fantastic pre-game show for us. We get to have the popcorn and watch all these scumbag corporations stab each other in the back while we wait for our internet to get better. If you look at Google Fiber and what it accomplished, you could see how Stadia just existing is going to change a lot of things. And you might be, dismissing Google Fiber because nothing's happened with it. It isn't in that many places. However, there is a Harvard Business Review article. I highly recommend reading it. It is basically a postmortem on Google Fiber, but it talks about all of the things that happened because this pilot program existed. It's incredible. I'm not going to go over even a fraction of it. I'm just going to kind of gloss over the what happened with ISPs in the United States anyway. I can't comment on the rest of the world. But here in the United States, we had the broadband. It was rolled out. They had some customers. And then the ISP companies just decided to say, we don't care anymore. This is good enough. We're raking in shitloads of money. Whatever. And then you have Google coming along announcing that, hey, we're going to do this program, this experiment with a fiber, and we're going to roll it out to these cities in our phase 1. And from everyone else's point of view, it looks like, yes, Google is going to be competition for everyone everywhere. They're a huge company. They can absolutely afford to do this. And then you saw ISPs actually updating their services. My ISP did. They didn't just upgrade all of their services. They doubled the speed of every single plan. And no, they didn't double the prices. The prices ended up going up by about $5 a month, maybe a year or so later. But, I mean, that price hasn't even changed in more than a year now. So, yes, I got to have the benefit of double the internet speed without double the price for only $5 a month. And I actually have competition in my area. AT&T started going door to door saying, hey, we exist in your area now. You could totally have AT&T. We'll even waive the installation fee. And if you look at Google Stadia from this new perspective, you can see how by just existing, I mean, it did not take very long for all of these other big-ass companies to immediately say, we're totally doing cloud gaming too. I mean, Stadia was just announced earlier this year, and we already have 2 other plans for cloud-based gaming. It's incredible. I mean, in a way, Stadia's kind of already succeeded, and it hasn't even launched yet. So when you look at Stadia, you can't just look at this little tiny view of what's going on now. You have to look at all of the other things that are happening in the tech area in general, and just with the internet technologies being increased and rapidly updating. So I fully expect in probably 3 to 5 years, maybe even as soon as 2 years, that our internet is going to see a lot of changes, even if net neutrality still doesn't go anywhere.